I've been on this quest for happiness, what generates a good life, and how to really feel like I'm relishing in the present moment and getting the most out of life. And before, I was under the impression that you needed to add a bunch of things into your life and optimize your time, be as efficient as possible, and maybe even do what everyone else is doing. And it took me hitting a wall where I found myself not wanting to get out of bed in the morning. I found myself exhausted from life. And I didn't know why. I thought I was just burnt out from doing too many things. But what was really happening is that I was overstimulated. And I think a lot of us know when we're overstimulated, but the thing that I didn't realize is how bad it had actually gotten. Because the way that society functions nowadays, it's pretty much normal to use our phones a lot each day, to be on devices and phone calls, and in the evening to have televisions in front of us. And that's exactly how I was operating. And I didn't think that there was anything wrong with it. In fact, I figured because everybody was doing it, that this was just normal. This is what life in 2026 is supposed to be like. So if I'm feeling a certain way, if I'm feeling burnt out and I have doubts and negative thoughts creeping in and a loss of motivation and all of this mental stuff going on in my head, there must be a different type of problem that I need to deal with. And it can't be what's happening in my external environment. And I was super wrong because recently what I decided to do is experiment with a dopamine detox. And I actually don't like the word detox because it implies that I'm just doing something temporarily and eventually I'm going to revert back towards my old way of life. So I actually prefer the term reset because what I'm doing is I'm adopting a different way of life and I'm trying things. And this was like the last resort, right? You just give up a bunch of things that you think are contributing to your unhappiness and complicating life in a way that makes you feel overwhelmed. And this is exactly how I felt. And the reason why I didn't do this sooner is because my mind would always come in and tell me, you can't give this up because life's going to get boring if you do. And you're going to become even more depressed than you feel right now. And it's just going to be awful. It's also going to be a waste of time because you'll eventually just revert back to your old way of life anyway. And you can't operate this way, a simple life in a complex society, because how are you going to fit in and integrate with everybody else? And my mind just went on and on and on until I was convinced not to make the decision and not to even try it. And one morning I woke up and I realized that I was spending every single ounce of my day engulfed in some form of stimulation. My screen time was 10 to 12 hours a day on my phone. And when I wasn't on my phone, I was in front of a computer monitor, a television screen. It was insane. And pretty much every single aspect of my day was consuming something. And my brain didn't have any time to process any information or recharge or do any of that. And I just thought that if I was getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, that I would be fine. You know, I was doing all the normal things that people do. I was reading at night, taking a shower, eating 3 meals a day, exercising, but I wasn't allowing my brain the chance to rest and actually recalibrate during the day. So recently I made a decision to start my entire day off with no screens, and I would wake up and just go for a walk outside. And the first day I remember feeling like shit. And my mind was going and it was telling me, this is boring, this is uncomfortable, I don't like this. And after about 20 minutes, I started to settle in, I started to notice trees and birds and things that I never noticed before when I was out on a walk because I was engulfed in a podcast or another form of content or ruminating over my own thoughts. And I started to feel more at ease. And throughout the rest of the day, I chose not to go on my phone and not to have a million tabs open on my computer. And I just stuck to my creative work and ideas. And I did my most important things in the morning. And in the afternoon, I allowed myself to wind down into the evening. And I felt so much more relaxed. I didn't realize how much stress was being generated inside my body from just jumping from one thing to the other just to convince myself that I did enough stuff during the day. And this was really crazy to experience because I didn't feel more miserable and I didn't really feel bored. I actually started to appreciate being able to just sit down on the couch and look out the window and allow my mind to just process naturally in whatever way it needed to. Fast forward a week, 2 weeks into this thing, I realized I was a completely different person. My brain was functioning at a higher capacity. I was able to compartmentalize my thoughts, speak clearer, write better. In fact, everything that I did was improved. And it didn't make sense because I was actually doing less during my day, but the things that I was doing were coming out at a higher output. And that's what was happening, because before I was jamming a bunch of things into my head and the work wasn't top notch. It just wasn't even consistent. And now I've found that I can take the most important things that I need to do during the day and actually execute those to the best of my ability. So this experiment has taught me that I was actually hurting myself by over consuming and thinking that I needed to learn a bunch of things and do a bunch of things and fill every ounce of my day to make it worthwhile, because I wasn't really present. I wasn't taking in anything. And when I would sit down and reconvene with my wife at the end of the day, I felt myself being restless and wanting to consume something instead of being able to sit on the couch and have a nice, relaxing conversation and connect with her. And I couldn't even connect with myself, because if I tried to do that, I would just crave some form of external stimulation. And I had forgotten pretty much who I was and what my goals were and what I was moving towards, and just started living this life on autopilot. So I'm making this video to share with you because I believe that the number one addiction in society right now is actually stimulation in general. And the reason why we don't pinpoint that and realize that a change is needed is because everyone's doing it. And we tell ourselves this is just the normal way of life. Where if I realize how my mind reacted when I wanted to change something, it would put all these doubts in my head and fear that things were going to get worse if I did this. And if I think back to other things that I was addicted to, like cigarettes, alcohol, even marijuana for a time being, when I quit those things, my brain went through the same process and it said, you don't want to do this. You can't live without this. Life is going to be awful without this. And I can now attest to the fact that life is so much better without these things. And it's actually better without the overstimulation as well, because I feel myself grounded and more in the present moment. And I'm remembering my weeks instead of everything just being a giant blur. I've also noticed that time goes by so much more slowly, and I have so much time during the day to do things because I'm not just cramming my day with a bunch of useless crap because I think it's useful, but most of it doesn't matter. Most of it is actually just a distraction. I don't doom scroll at all. My screen time has gone down to less than 2 hours a day, and all 2 hours of that is productivity related. I'm sleeping better, I'm eating healthier, and life has gotten amazing. That's really all I can say about it. And it happened fast. This isn't just something that took 6 months to come into being. This was something where I noticed a difference a couple days into it, and a couple weeks into it, I was a completely different person. So if you're struggling with moods, or you think that you're depressed, I would recommend looking at how stimulated you are making yourself during the day first, before jumping to conclusions, and see if you tone that down a little bit, if you actually notice a difference. And when your mind tells you not to do it and it's going to be a waste of time, don't listen to it, because you need to be able to see that for yourself. You need to test that for yourself. Your mind doesn't actually know what's going to happen, because in my case, I had never slowed down. And I saw this meme that one of my friends posted on Substack about how he was ready to give up everything to go back to the 90s, where people were playing outside, landlines, reading newspapers. And I think about why he mentioned those activities, and those are low stimulating activities that we all used to enjoy very much. And I looked at the amount of likes and shares under this thing, and it was massive, which tells me that people are fed up with the complexity of life and overstimulation that is clouding everyone's minds. And this tells me that people really do want a more simple life. They just don't know how to get there or to accept it. And maybe there's even a fear that they won't fit in anymore, which is one of the fears that I had when I started. But that couldn't be further from the truth. And now that I feel like I'm operating at more of an optimal sense of self, everything that I do is going to be stronger and my relationships are greater. It's really just a win-win on all sides. So if you are struggling with this thing, if this does resonate with you, leave a comment and let's start a discussion about this, because that's the first thing that actually provokes change is awareness. And if this does resonate with you, feel free to subscribe for more content that focuses on self-awareness, self-improvement, relationships, and living an optimal lifestyle, because we're the only ones that can change our lives and shift our sense of being into a more upgraded state. And I'd love for you to follow along so that we can work on this together.